Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer and Information Science at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellen, Illinois. And this video today is going to take a look at the old standby, the hello world of game programming, Pong. I'm going to be looking at this from a one-player standpoint. So we're going to have one human component, one human paddle, controlled paddle, and we're going to have one paddle controlled by a basically an if statement and an AI-controlled, computer-controlled paddle. So by now, if you do not know what Pong is, Pong started 47 or so years ago from the moment I'm making this video. This is what it looked like way back at the end of 1972 and the introduction to 1973. And so, and all these years later, this is kind of cool here, this little video here showing you a much more modern representation of it. I think it's going to, what does it use? Magnets and all sorts of cool Internet of Things kind of things when it comes to graphics and just making it even cooler than it was way back in the day. Oops, and it's a Labor Day store-wide sale at Room Place. But anyway, so this is kind of what we're going to be doing. I mean, I already have some graphics. I'm going to show you what we're going to start building, and we're going to do this in GameMaker, of course. So get ready, and here we go. Okay, so I am in GameMaker now, and I set a few things up just to kind of save us some time. You can pause, of course, and do whatever you need to do to keep up with this. And so we only need a few objects to make the game portion of the game work. You will see another video when I set up a menu system, because for my students in my class settings, they're going to be making a game with a one-player version, a two-player version, and a main menu. And so a lot of the components will be the same, but some of them will be different. And so the room, I created a room. It's a blank room at the moment. I call it one player room, and I changed the settings to be a 720p resolution. So 1280 by 720 over here is what I set the resolution for our screen, or for our game window. And then I'm going to set up 4 sprites, and I'll show you those. So the human paddle, and this is GameMaker 2.3, so everything looks a little different in here. And again, I'm just kind of getting used to everything myself, and I plan on making some videos in the future that show some of the cool new stuff that GameMaker allows, which it looks pretty cool, especially the animation curve stuff, something that has been needed for quite a while in GameMaker especially. So here is my paddle, and again, I'm going off of a 720p resolution for the entire game screen. So, but go with whatever you see fit. If you make the paddle too big, the game will be maybe too easy. If the paddle is too small, the game will be too hard. And this isn't 1973 where they're trying to steal your quarters. So try to find a nice balance instead of something that ends the game quickly. Try to find a good balance. I chose 40 for the width, 220 for the height. And my graphic is just, it's red on darker red on lighter red, or light red on dark red. And then I actually went ahead and put in some letters, put in basically my own font for what keys we're going to use to go up and down, so the user knows what to do. W for up, S for down. And the other major component here is that I use the middle center settings for the centering of the sprite. And you will find maybe you'll find early on, and maybe you won't remember how to fix it. If you do not do this, then the ball won't bounce right later on when we go to do other things. So you have to make sure that the paddles, and when we get to the ball, everything except for the wall that we're going to create is centered right in the center of the sprite. And so the computer paddle is just basically a duplicate of the human paddle, where I just remove the W and the S, just so there's no confusion as to what's going on with that. 40-220 for the resolution, or for the size, and then middle center for the centering of this sprite. The ball, 40 by 40, I just made it, look like this. 40 by 40, just went ahead and created white with a little gray background, or gray border, and just using circle components. And it's 40 by 40. It's also centered right in the middle of everything. And so the final component that we need, we're going to need things like fonts and things like that to print scores out and other things like that, but we're not going to need any other sprites per se. And so for this wall sprite, I made it this purple on purpose because you're never supposed to see it. We're going to place it just off the screen when you go ahead and see that later on. And but I made it 40 by 40, and we're going to take this one thing and we're going to stretch it. So we have, you'll see how we do that inside of the room editor. But that is all I have for sprites. I don't even have any objects set up just yet. that's our next step. Usually what happens is you create your sprites, then you create the objects, then you put them in the room, and then you hit go and see what happens. It's, especially when you're first starting out making something, that is usually the train of thought there. So let's take a look at least setting up the objects and just getting the basics going and getting a game where you can look at the running executable program and go, hey, that at least looks like Pong. Doesn't play like Pong, but at least it looks like. All right, so let's take a look at the objects. So I go over to objects, I create a new object. I'm going to call it paddle human. And I'm just going to make sure it gets the human paddle sprite. Wish they haven't fixed that yet. They'll get there one day. Okay, I need to create the paddle object for paddle computer, or AI, or whatever you want to call it. That's going to use the computer paddle sprite. I am going to need object for the ball, obviously, and the ball sprite, and I'm going to need a wall. Right now, pretty easy stuff. And again, for those of you, depending on where you are with your experience level with GameMaker, you have to make sure that every single component, every resource every asset in your program, in your game, has a unique name. At least over here when you put it into GameMaker. So that's why I use _SPR for anything that has a sprite associated with it. I have _room. The only one that I don't apply that to is the objects, and that's because a lot of times I don't, I think that's superfluous, and it especially when we're writing code, you're going to see very quickly that I don't want to type that out. It just confuses things when you go to write code. And so I think that's good for my conventional way of doing things. But as long as you are consistent, you can do pretty much whatever you want. These are your games. You can do, obviously you can do whatever you'd like to do. Okay, so now I have my 4 object types. I can go into my room and start playing around with this. And a lot of times here, I need to go and change the grid settings. And so what I'm going to do is try to make at least for the 3, the ball and the 2 paddles, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. You can see here, I'm trying for some granularity here when it comes horizontally, but vertically I want to make sure everything is very centered. And you'll get to see if you did everything correctly with your centering, because if I go to put the computer paddle in, there I put it there, and I put the human paddle in, you can see if it's centered, and it is. It's perfectly centered on my screen, and I wanted to move over just a little bit so there's a little space between the paddle and the outside of the room. And then I can set this up, and then for the ball, I can say 640, and now look at that, right? Now I just have to drag the ball right to there. And I don't have to do any thought. It doesn't take any effort to go like, is it centered? Because I know it absolutely is centered. And then so the last step here is to put in the wall. The walls, I'm just going to go up here like this, and then I can click on it, and I can drag this thing out. And again, I made it purple on purpose so that if you see it, you know you don't have it in your room correctly, because I have it just off the screen, and that's how the ball's going to basically bounce right off of that thing. And I can just Control-C, Control-V, drag this thing down, and there we go. I have the basic components. I can remove this, and you can see I now have the basic components. And if I hit run in 720p resolution, here is my game. Now, of course, again, nothing works like you would expect it to, and oops, and you do. Oh, never mind. I thought I saw that there. You can't. There is no purple. You can see there is no purple on the screen in my window. Let me make this a little smaller so you can see for sure that there you go. That I have my game running, and the purple is just there for basically invisible objects for the ball to collide off of. All right, so now we need to add a little bit of life to this, and the ball is going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of things that have to go on with the ball, collision events and movements and alarms and all sorts of things. So let's just start with the easiest thing we can get going with, and that is, of course, the paddle, the human paddle, and the W and the S keys. And I want, we could just tie this to events, and I guess we're early enough in the semester that we might as well just start tying events. And later on, you will see that a lot of times you do get away from a lot of the events, and you kind of move everything into the step event, and you write your own code to check if the W key was pressed, or if the S key was pressed, or anything else, because like I have control issues, I'm told. I don't know, but when it comes to programming, it's like I want to make sure that the order of operations when it comes to handling events are dictated by me and not by GameMaker or anybody else. Anyway, so coming back in, I go into my human paddle, and I can say key down, not not pressed, but key down. I want to say if I press the up key, and this is where things get confusing because you see key down up, and you're like, oh goodness, that's horrendous. Let me make this a little bigger for you guys. There we go. So I say, okay, if I press the up key at every game frame that I'm pressing this thing, I want to move up. So I could say something like x minus equals 5. Or if, whatever, or if I want to give this a speed, we'll talk about making things more generic in later videos. Because of course the goal of any programmer is to give lots of hooks and settings to the game designer or the artist or anyone else where they can just come in and they can tweak the game, because I don't care about the tweaks. My fun, my creativity, a lot of this comes in getting everything up and running and working and just giving you the hooks as a designer to come in and make the game playable, make the game fun, because I got a million other things to worry about than, what is the speed of the paddle and what is the speed of the ball and all the other things that any game designer has to worry about. That's just honesty. Yeah. But I love this move context solid function. I love this thing, and I want to go, and I need 2 parameters to make this thing work, and it means exactly what you think it means. I can try to go in the 90-degree motion, that means upwards, try to go up, and I want to try to go 5 pixels. And so if I run into something solid, I'll stop. There actually is no collision event. If there is no contact. I wish there was a better word for it, but it moves up to the collision point but never collides. And the game will at least run here, and you'd be like, okay, I can press W. Oops, oh, I'm sorry, I did key down up. Let me change this. My mistake. I make mistakes all the time. Key down, letter W. I'm used to using arrow keys, sorry about that. So let's see, I want to use the W. And now I can go ahead over here and go W, but it just goes off the screen because there's nothing solid. There's an object up there, the wall, we just created it, but it's not solid. So if I go into the wall object, and all I have to do is, it's just one click right there, now things will change very much. The behavior is much more different, because now, oh, that's interesting. Now that was not what I was expecting. I thought it was going to go to the top of the room and that's it. Let's see. I don't understand what is happening. How come that's happening the way it's happening? Wall. Let's take a look at the sprite for the wall. That is interesting. I was not expecting to see that. Collision mask. Oh, interesting. For some reason, this did not work out correctly, so we'll have to use the full image, or even when this happens, it's not setting this up. I'll have to make it manual. Oh, maybe if anyone knows why this did not give me the correct settings, please let me know, because I don't know. It used to. There we go. It did not set up the collision box correctly for this wall object when I created it as a 40 by 40. Now it's got me curious. I got to make sure it's this. Got to make sure that all the other ones are good. My ball? No. What is up with that? Is it now my responsibility to change all of this? I do not know the answer. Maybe it's a 2.3 thing. Manual, 39, 39. Oh goodness. Oh, 39, 39. The wall, 39, 39. The paddle. Okay, that one was done right, 39, 219. The paddle. Nope, that one's not right either. Interesting. 39, 219. So you want to make sure you go 0 for left, 0 for top, and then width -1 and height -1 for the other 2. That's what I've been doing this whole time. So now it should work. Oh, GameMaker, can't you just keep? There we go. So I can't go down just yet because I haven't written the code, but you can see now I can go to the top of the screen, but that's as far as I can go with the paddle. And so now coming back to my human paddle, I can duplicate this for key down S. And then all I'm changing is 90 becomes 270. And now I have full control over the full control. I can W to go up, S to go down. It goes at the same speed. There we go. Everything is looking good on this end. So now we have a working controller, or just a working human-controlled paddle. Okay, so now let's get the ball working a little better than what we've got, the nothing we have working for it now. Okay, so there's our ball. I'm used to sprites being above the object, so that's why you'll see me probably for the next 6 years of my life. I'll be clicking in the wrong place first. So I have my ball, and I can say on create, I want to be able to have it move in a certain direction. So I want to give it a speed. I can say speed equals 12. And so now you'll notice, especially with me, when you're dealing with me, that you'll see there's different mechanisms involved. There's different paradigms. There's different ways to have objects move. You could just directly change the X and Y components. I could just say X, like I was thinking of doing originally with the paddle, and just say Y minus equals 6 to go up, or Y plus equals 6 to go down. And then I showed you with the move context solid, which I'll be using a lot more in other videos to show how to, for platforming games and just games where you're trying to keep a character inside the bounds of a volume of space, just kind of like what we're doing here with keeping the paddle on the screen. But then GameMaker comes with this free stuff, the speed, where you can play with the speed and the direction, and then they say that everything kind of works. In all my years, I've been working with GameMaker since 2006, and I've never been able to figure out the exactness of how it works, how collision detection and response works for collisions in GameMaker. They say it's easy. It just never seems to work for me. And there are still things that can go wrong with the GameMaker system, because you can actually have an object jump basically right through an object if it's going fast enough. And if I use my move context solid function, it's not possible for an object to, just because it's fast, to accidentally jump and run right outside of the room. Okay, so when the ball starts up, I would probably like to have this thing choose to go between two directions. So this is just a random choice. Go left, go right. It goes left, and it just goes, and it's gone. It's off the screen. There's no code for collision. And if every time you run this, you can't see this, but every time I run the game, it's going to go left, because there's nothing telling GameMaker to randomize everything. And it's also going immediately. Like, can I get it over to you fast enough? Nope, can't even get it over to you fast enough. My clicking has slowed down over the years. So now I can't even show it to you because it's before it goes off the screen. I'd like to have a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to basically steal this code, and I'm going to put an alarm timer in. And I'm going to say wait 120, that's the number of game frames. And GameMaker recently, where have they put that? Where are the settings now? I'll have to look for this at some quick access maybe. Where are the settings? Game options? There we go. For Windows. General, or is it just general? Graphics stuff, we can play with that later. Main. GameMaker now uses 60 frames per second. For a long time they used 30, but they've upped their game, and now GameMaker runs at 60 frames per second. So what that means for me is this ball is going to wait 2 seconds to call the alarm, and then it will go. And now I have some time to actually drag this thing over to us. 1, 2, go. Cool, fair enough. And now I can actually go ahead and also put the idea of randomize in. So instead of betting with your friends and always winning, because you're like, I bet it goes left. They go, now there is a 50-50 shot of it going right. And just because I said that doesn't mean it'll happen, right? So how many times will it take? Here's time 2. It will. Come on, randomize. Here's time 3. Nope. Okay. At a certain point, you got to go to the casino and you got to buy a lottery ticket because you are being lucky enough here. There we go. It went to the right. So, and again, over time, of course, over an infinite number of tries, it will be 50% left and 50% right. Okay, so that's all we needed to get going. And so now, next step is what to do when the ball hits the paddle. And let's just start with the human paddle. Got to start somewhere. And now this is a collision event. So there, again, you're going to see different ways of doing things. Oh, if you watch all these videos of mine, you will see many different ways to access collisions and responses to the collisions. This is just one of them. So I'm going to say on collision with objects. That's interesting. What else can you collide with now? I don't know. Oh, I guess you can set up your own stuff. That's pretty cool. So let's see. If the human paddle, well, actually, let's go into the ball. Let's put this into the ball here. If the ball collides with the human paddle, let's just start it out easy and just say direction equals 0, because the ball would be going 180. Let's just test it out and make sure it works. Keep the speed the same. Now it's going to go right. Nope, there it is, and now it can't bounce off. And so that's exactly what we want for at least a base behavior. And so now we can go ahead and play with this and make this a lot easier for us. So, or easier. The code's more complicated, but we can add more custom behavior to this. And this is why it's important to center the ball and center the paddle, because all we're going to be doing here instead is just doing some kind of if check. And I'm going to say, if I'm inside of the ball, so I can just say if the y of the ball is greater than the y of other, and in this case, this is one of those only times you can use the keyword other. And you can say, because other is, in a collision event, other is tied to the object that I've collided with. And what does this mean? If the ball's y is greater than the other's y, that means the ball is underneath on the screen. It's lower on the screen than the paddle is, which, so just saying, the paddle, the ball is down here on the paddle, if I was going to say, or basically the paddle is above the ball when the collision occurred. And so just to get things going again, I can say, okay, let's have the ball bounce diagonally at 315 degrees. There's only 2 ways for this thing to go. And again, you as a programmer, you have infinite control over this, but I'm just keeping it simple for just an introductory video. And so 315 and 45, let's try it out. It might take a while. So let's see. Go up. There it goes. All right. And we haven't fixed up the collision with the wall yet. So let's try the other one just to make sure. Got a 1 in 50-50 shot. There we go. And it goes down. So that's perfect. That's, in a couple steps there, we've got what we want. And now what we can do also is kind of add a little bit of randomization to this. So I can say, let's see, 290 plus random 50. Or I can say 20 plus random 50. And so now this will give me something between 290 and 340 when it comes to the degrees, and this will give me something between 20 and 70. And as long as the 315 is the average, 25 give or take in each direction from 315. Yes, it's because 315 minus 25 is 290, plus 25 is 340, and 20 plus random, yep, and then this is 90, this is 45. And now there's a little bit of a randomization component to this. So it's not going to be the same boring bounce every single time. And so you'll get some bounces are a little straighter, some bounces are a little more pronounced and a little more, just a little more vertical. And you'll never have it where the ball will bounce completely up or down, because that would be the game would be over, because no one will ever score if the ball just goes up or down, up or down, up and down. But that is all there is to it, to the ball colliding with this paddle, and I can actually duplicate this to have collision with the computer paddle. It's just we got to reverse the numbers because the ball has to bounce backwards. The ball has to bounce this way or that way. And so these numbers stay the same. It's just this changes. 290 becomes, let's see, just subtract off 90. Make this 200. 200 to 250. And with a 225 as the average. Yep, that makes sense. And then if I'm going up, I want to go 135 for the average. So it'll be 115 plus random. Oops, 115 plus random. So this will give me between 115, 110, sorry. Go between 110 and 160 with 135 being the average case there. I think that'll work. Let's try it out. And so we'll see. It hasn't gone right yet. Oh, randomization. Well, it never went right to start with, right? So let's see here. Come on. What are the odds? Go gambling, at least at my casino today. Gosh. What in the world? I put randomize in. There we go. And it goes one of the two ways. And now we can set up, we're almost there. We can almost set up the AI, which is it's very similar to what you see here. It's just an if statement with an else. And instead of setting a direction, we're just going to move up or down. But we'll see that in a minute here. So now this is the ball. And so if I'm going to, I can collide with either one of the paddles. What happens if I collide with the wall object? There's no drag and drop element for this. There was many, many years ago. I don't know why they would eliminate, or maybe they put it back now. I haven't looked since I started 2.3 here. But there's a move bounce all function, which means exactly what you want. You think it would mean. It means I can bounce the object off the, oops, is there a parameter? Oh, there's a parameter. And I go advanced. No, I don't need crazy advanced physics on the ball bouncing. I just want a nice elastic collision. And so now, when it comes to it, there I go, there it goes. Look at this. We actually kind of have a game going here, right? Yep, and we just tested out all 4 bounces, so we're good to go. Maybe you see a problem with the game. Maybe not. There it goes. I finally can score. Because you're like, if the computer never has to move, that's not good AI. But anyway, so that's how we cover that. The final step here then is let's make the AI for the paddle. And so I can actually steal this code, because much of this is already in action here. And I can go into the computer controlled paddle, and I have to do this in a step event. Because the AI has to look frame for frame what's going on in the game to determine which direction it needs to go. And so if you put this in a create event or you put this in something where it's very sporadic, you're never going to see the paddle moving. But if you do it something like this in a step event, everything's going to work out just great. Okay, so I need to change this other because we're no longer in a collision event. And now I can say ball.y. And now I have to watch out because this means the y now relates to the paddle and not the ball, because I'm saying ball dot. And you also have to watch out, those of you who are like, I'm going to make multi-ball and all this cool stuff. Like this, what I'm doing right now, does not apply to a multi-ball setting. This presumes, does not assume, it presumes that you have only one ball in your room and it will lock on to that one ball as it's doing its business here, okay? Just so we're clear on that. And so what does this mean? If my y is greater than the ball, that means that the paddle is below the ball. And I need to go up to match it. So I can do a move contact solid, and I can do a 90, and then this is where you gotta watch out. What speed should this thing go at? How about I do 11? And then let me change this down below here to be like, okay, if I'm not going up, I gotta go down, right? There's only 2 ways to go. This isn't air hockey or anything like that. This is just typical up and down Pong. Let's see what happens. Watch your eyes. Look at that thing go, right? And as you could tell, the game, it's impossible to beat because the ball is just, the AI is just too good. It's just going to catch up way too quickly. So that 11 is way too much. And so this is where gameplay balance would occur, would be needed. You know, we need the designers to tinker with these values to determine these kind of things. Here's 3. Does 3 work? And you can tinker with, yep, maybe 3 is too easy. It's hard to know. Okay, so oopsie doopsie. Now the ball went off the screen, and that's fine. We haven't covered that yet. But you can see that maybe 3 is too easy. You have to find a balance. And then maybe like when the ball hits the human paddle, maybe we speed up the ball or something like that. We'll see. I mean, I don't want to play, again, I don't want to introduce feature creep. I just want to get you guys the stuff that you need. So let me go back to the computer panel, and here you go. You can change the number to something you see fit when it comes to the settings. And one thing you may notice if you up the value of the speed is that everything looks a little jerky. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. You probably saw it when it was at 11, and that's just because it can never get to the right value. It overshoots every single time it's trying to match with the ball. And again, I don't want to do that in this video right here, but you can set it up to basically give me the smaller of two values. What is closer, the ball or the amount of space I want to move? Before we introduce the idea of scoring, as you see there, I want to introduce the idea of bringing the ball back from out of the room. And so in the ball object, that is as easy as a other outside room event. When the ball leaves the room, there's only two ways it can go. However, right now, I don't care. I just want to say x equals x start and y equals y start. These are x start and y start are fancy, fun GameMaker variables that keep track of where did this object start when it created. Oops, I spelled it wrong. And so now you can kind of see. There we go. Boop. And now when someone scores, there I go. And then, but you can see it goes right back. That's probably, I mean, that's good and all. At least it goes back to the start when I win or I lose or either way, right? So when the ball goes back, it's just now I need to stop this thing. So I can say speed equals 0. And then, well, if I run that, what happens now, right? Now the ball will never, once I score, the ball, or when somebody scores, the ball will go back, but the ball will never do anything. So then just remembering back, how about we set that alarm timer back to 120? So there's 2 seconds for you to get back to it. There you go. And so I score, 1, 2, there we go. And now we have, outside of the score, we have a fully working Pong game. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so the last two things I want to do for this video is introduce scoring and then introduce a winning or losing condition, just an end game condition. When one of the two players scores enough points, there's some indication that somebody won, somebody lost, or whatever you want to tell the player. Okay, so the first thing I would want to do is set up a font to draw on the screen. So let's find whatever you want for a font. I'm just going to pick one and go. I don't have any favorites over all these years or anything. I don't even know where all these fonts come from. Super black? Sure. Default, regular. Oh, I don't have bold. That's okay. 60 size? Oh, yeah, look at those numbers. Okay. And then, so I can go with that. I will call this Pong Score Font. Okay. You can call it whatever you want as long as you remember what you called it. Notice again, I put underscore font so that I know that it's a font asset versus anything else. Okay, so cool. I have my score font, and now I can, where do I put this? We'll talk about controller objects and all sorts of things at later dates. I'm going to put it in the ball. The ball is busy. See, told you. The ball's got a lot going on, and we're going to add some more stuff to it here. Because when the ball goes outside of the room, this is where I need to check. But before I do anything else, because I need to do a check here to say where was the ball when it left the room. Was it on the left side or the right? And then adjust the scores accordingly. But I need to keep track of the score. And this is where I can set up my own variables. I don't think we've done that yet. I think everything has been GameMaker so far. And so this is where I can go ahead and say, oh, the left player has 0 points. The right player has 0 points. And that's where I can start things out. And yes, it's screaming at me because I have not created, I've not used these things yet. I've just defined them inside of the create event. And then I'm taking over another event to be able to draw the score on the screen. And I'm taking over the draw, and I'm going to do draw GUI. And so, because if I took over draw, then I would take over the drawing of the ball. And I don't want to do that. I just want to draw on top of the screen. GUI means HUD. I wish it would be draw HUD or something like that. But I get GUI, graphical user interface, heads-up display. They're the same. They're two ways of getting to the same spot. So this draw GUI is pretty cool because then I can just go ahead and I can just say at draw text, at, I'll just, right now, just to get it on the screen, I'll just say 50-50, and I'll say left. We can tinker with this in a minute. And then I can say, give me 1050 and give me right. And oops, 1050 is too much. I don't, or did I do Y? Oh, I did Y. And you notice the font was not programmed in. So how does it know? There you go. There's my 0. There's my 0. How the heck is it supposed to know what font to use? So I'm going to say draw set font. And I've discussed in other videos, don't know where in the series that is, but you want to make sure pretty much every time you print something, just pretend like whoever used it last just ruined all the settings, and you have to reset everything every time. Because, yeah, especially for that one video I made the other day, once I changed all of that, everything else just went to crap. It really did. So I can say draw set font, I can say draw set color, whatever you think, whatever sees fit. Everything seems to be red, so maybe I use red, see red. I don't know. You can change whatever color. Did I do something wrong? No, I didn't. So there's my 0, 0. And of course, when the ball goes off the screen, nothing happens. We'll set up these values in a minute. But what happens over here then is when the ball goes outside of the room, and you have to do this before you put the ball back, because this is going to, if you put the ball back in the middle, nothing's ever going to register correctly. But I'm just going to say, I left the room, I'm outside of the room, where am I horizontally on the screen? If I'm over here, then it went off the screen to the left, and the right player scored, right? And so I can say plus plus right. And in this case, in this game right now, there's only 2 ways this can go. If it didn't go off the screen to the left, it went off the screen to the right. And again, you have to make sure you do this before you move this thing back. Otherwise, it'll always give score to one of the 2 players, and that's it. So let's see. Okay, let's see. Come on, we got this. Oops, get out of the way. There's 1, my turn. Hopefully. Oh boy, you can play with it if you don't like that bounce, or there's other, obviously Pong has a lot of stuff going for it if you really want to tinker with it. I get it. Oh man, it's gonna take forever now. I think I got it. There I go. Cool, I got it. And now it's just a matter of setting up where on the screen you want this thing to draw. And I'll tinker with it and come back and tell you where I put it. But I won't bore you with just watching me tinker with settings until I trial and error it. Okay, so I set up, as you see here, 130, 25 for the left value, 1150, 25 for the right value, and I did add a draw set H align just so that the thing was better aligned, so that it will always draw the value at these locations centered, so that, and we don't care about it vertically, we care about it horizontally, so that when you run the game, it won't look off. It'll always be the same distance from the edge of the screen either way. 130 pixels from the left or 130 pixels from the right. That's where the center of the image will be. And that's all there is to it. I have myself score values, and now the final step is to dictate a winning or losing an endgame condition. And the endgame condition is not as hard as you might think. Well, depends on that. It's always experience, like depending on, like, it's always easy if you know how. So coming back into the outside room event for the ball, this is where the scoring occurs. This is also where we can do some, just basically an if check and say, okay, if the right score is now greater than or equal to 3, do something. This is basic, so I've increased the score by 1. And the reason for the greater than or equal to is maybe you have double points or all sorts of weird things happen. And you don't want to accidentally overjump the score, because if I just say, okay, if score is equal to 3, but if your score jumps from 2 to 4, well, I won the game, but that's not fair that I don't get credit for it. So I'm just future-proofing this. Oops, I hit the insert key. So something like this. If the score is greater than, I can do a show message. And if it's the right player that won, excuse me, you lost. And then But then what do I do, right? Like I don't have, like right now, this game is just standalone. Do I, if this was the like part of the homework assignment or the project I'm having my students do, I would probably have it go back to the main menu. But in this case, maybe you want to do a room restart. So like maybe if you lose, maybe you restart the room and try again. And then maybe if I win, the game just exits, just to show you the different functions to do the job. And 3, you can pick whatever score you want, but 3 points will be hard enough. You'll be watching me play Pong. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't. Let me just stop this. Is it game exit? Game end. Room restart to start the game over, or at least restart the Pong level. And then game end to end the game when I win. So it won't let you, basically keep playing until you win. So that this one should, oh no, okay, I'm trying to lose. Now it's going to be hard. Okay, here we go. 1 point. At this point, you could speed me up greatly. I don't even want to listen to myself sometimes, right? So let's see. There's 2 points. Here's 3. And then here it goes. Yep, you lost. I hit OK. Game starts over. And now it's going to take a little while. Hopefully not. Yeah, I need to drink water. Okay, uh-oh. Maybe this one will do it. Either will or it won't. All right, 1 down. Here's 2. And I really got to tinker with the settings on the speed of the paddle to make it more fun. It's functional. It's not fun. All right, here we go. I think we got it. And I win, and the game ends. And so you notice it's kind of like we'll have to tinker with things. GameMaker is great like this, that the order of operations, this is what I'm saying, like the order of operations matter greatly. I won the game, but the game is telling me that the score is 2-0, but I know the score is 3-0. So there would have to be something involved in maybe like pausing this for 1 game frame so that this turns into a 3, just so you see that there might be an issue there where someone will get a little hurt. Their feelings will be hurt because I'm like, you didn't win. It's 2-0. It's not 3-0. You're like, but yeah, you know what happened. You saw what happened. So now I end the game exit. And again, we'll come back to this. I'll show you guys how to do a few of these things, get things, because I have to do a main menu for my students, and then I'll show you how to tie it all together. It's not going to be hard to just rewire this a little bit to go back to the main menu room. But that pretty much covers what's going on here. So the ball the ball object has 7 events of various complexities and lots of code. That's what we do now, right? So just getting used to, a lot of times it's just getting used to it, because the drag and drop is great. It shows you everything you got to put in to make it work. You can't forget anything like you can with code. You just have to get the experience of, of trial by fire and failing until you remember all this stuff. And I don't remember. That's what help is your best friend. F1, help is your best friend. And then it'll bring up the manual, and I'll be showing this more and more over time, that you can just go ahead and just start searching and clicking and finding everything. It's all online now, but there's also a copy that comes with GameMaker. And so, okay, so the wall doesn't do anything when it comes to events. The human, 2 events, 2 lines of code for the human, and the computer only has this if statement. Like, not a lot of code. It took a lot of time. It took 45 minutes or an hour. I don't know how long I've been going for, but you get the point here that we now have a completely working Pong game ready to go. So thanks for sticking with it here with me. If you have any questions, I do recommend you emailing me at swardb@cod.edu rather than YouTube, since I'm not on YouTube as often as I am on my email and working from home these days. And so I'll get back to you as soon as I can if you have any questions, if I screwed something up or whatever. But if you have anything, how to make things, like I'd love to hear you guys tell me what you want to do to Pong, and I can maybe show you guys how to make extra things work. Like with my 15-piece slide puzzle, I showed you guys how to do a winning condition with my spooky voice before I fixed up my room. I don't think I echo anymore. I put a rug in here, and now all the echoing seems to have gone away. But anyway, thanks for sticking with it again, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.